that whatever path God sets me on or whatever path God sets you on, no matter how hard it gets, if we stay faithful to God and we trust Him, He will bless and do whatever He's called us to do. He'll do it each and every time. You cannot fail if you will trust God. I promise you, you cannot fail. When you begin to fail is when you begin to doubt and not believe God. It said Joseph dreamed a dream and he told his brethren and they hated him yet the more. Can I share something with you? There are going to be people that you thought loved you. Y'all better listen to this. There'll be people that you thought loved you. And as you begin to serve and be faithful to God, and I mean you really begin to serve Him and you really begin to be faithful to Him, they'll begin to hate you. They won't want to hear a thing you got to say. When you really sell yourself out, people will begin to hate you. I'm sorry, that's the way it works. Because everybody ain't sold out. And if everybody ain't sold out, everybody is not going to want to listen to what you got to say. They did not want to hear what Joseph had to say. Joseph was just sharing with them what he had a dream about. And they didn't want to hear it. It said, he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field. And lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaf stood round about. And made obeisance unto my sheaf. And his brethren said unto him, shalt thou indeed reign over us? Woo, yeah, he did. We'll see that probably sometime next week. Yes, he did reign over them. He had absolute rule over them before it was over with. He had the power and authority to do whatever he wanted to them. It's amazing how right here God is already showing him what's going to happen. And now remember now, he's 17 years old. 17. Here he is telling his brothers, man, I had a dream. We was all out working and all of a sudden, all your stuff was having to pay attention to me. They was all having to rely on me. Well, that tore them up, didn't it? You know what? It'll tear people up when they begin to realize that God's blessing what you're doing and not what they got. It'll tear people up, I'm telling you right now. Verse 9 said, and he dreamed yet another dream. One wasn't enough, God gave him another one. Isn't that just like God? He said, you know what? He said, I'm going to give you another one. This is going to be even better. Here comes another one, young man. Because you know what? Sometimes, you know what? Let me tell you something. God does not want His children to get disheartened because people try to discourage you. I'm here to tell you something right now. God will give you a word and you go share it with somebody. They'll tell you, oh, you crazy? That's not what God told you. And the first thing you begin to do is say, well, maybe it's not. Let me tell you something. If God gives you a word, you better take it to the bank. Now, I ain't saying man gives you a word. I said God gives you one. You better take it to the bank because it will come to pass. You better take that and put it in your pocket, and your mind better stay focused on what God has sent you and called you to do. That's why people don't have victory today. They don't believe what God tells them. Let me ask you a question. Has God ever told you anything? This is kind of a trick question. Has God ever told you anything? Tell you what, if God's ever told you anything, raise your hand. Now this is going to sting. Y'all ready? He's talking to you right here. He's talking to you right here. It's right here. It's been, everything you need to hear has already been spoken over you. You just got to pick it up and read it. That hurt, didn't it? Thank you. Triple amens now. It said he dreamed yet another dream, and he told it his brethren and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it his father and to his brethren. His father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? Yes, you will. You see, when it starts talking about the moon and the stars, that's talking about Jacob and his descendants. That's talking about his family directly. He knew what it meant. When he told his daddy knew exactly what he meant when he said that. He said, You mean to tell me that we gonna all have to come and bow down before you? Yeah. Yes, you will. And it wasn't because Joseph asked for it. It's because it was God's plan. See, they was tore up because they thought it was Joseph's plan. It wasn't. Joseph didn't ask for any of this. Joseph just minding his own business, and all of a sudden God comes by, gives him a dream. Then he gives him another one. It said in verse 11, his brethren envied him. Woo! That's when it starts getting in trouble right there. They envied him. But his father observed the saying. Did you see that? His daddy was the only one that took heed to what he said. You know, it's kind of amazing, isn't it? You know, his daddy had done, he raised this boy right. And I believe his daddy spent time with him teaching him what it meant about trusting God and about seeking God. And you know what? I believe his daddy began to realize, you know what? God's getting ready to do something in this young man's life. God's getting ready to do something here. And you know what? Who am I to question him? He's always been faithful to me. I'm going to listen to what he's got to say. And so he said his daddy observed it. But his brothers envied him. And let me tell you something. Envy was stacked on top of them already hating him. Can I tell you something? You can't envy somebody unless you're already angry at them. See, that's why we got to be careful. But see, people today, they find themselves in the midst of envying all the time, and you got to be real careful. That's dangerous ground. Do you realize envy led them to throwing him in the pit? They wanted what he had. The only way they could get it was to get rid of him. I got news for you today. There are people that would love to get rid of you when you serve God. I'm going to tell y'all something. Y'all better be listening to this word. Some of you fixing to go through some seasons and you're going to live it. God doesn't give this word just for people to enjoy it. It's to prepare you for what you're about to go through. There are people that would love to see you thrown into a pit and left there to suffer and die so they can have what you got. But let me tell you something. You can't get God's blessing doing that. Joseph had that blessing because he was faithful. He had that blessing because he knew what it meant to live a life abstaining from evil. You can't get blessed living an evil life. You might have the world bless you for a little while, but that will perish and it will fade away. God's blessing lasts forever. It said, his brethren went to feed the flock. It said, Israel said to Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said, here I am. And he said unto him, go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. In other words, you go check on them boys and see what they doing. Because it seems like every time I send them somewhere, they get into trouble. Isn't it amazing? People start wandering away from their daddy and they get in all kind of trouble. Here's a prime example. People come to church, they behave pretty good. They smile. They clap their hands a little bit. You might get an amen out of them every now and then, and they leave